Good evening and welcome to the October 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Grafton Mass Disability Commission. I'm Roger Trahan, Chair of the Commission, and I call this meeting to order. As a preliminary matter, please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Our newest member, Jen Pearson.
Jen, I need to hear you. Can you unmute? Thank you.
I'm here.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jen.
All right. Christy Proctor.
Here.
Daryl Reining, I know, will be joining us. Matt Often.
I am here.
Catherine Dorr.
Here.
And Missy Lackey. Welcome, Catherine, and happy belated birthday. And Missy Lackey will hopefully be joining us. An introduction to the remote meeting. This open meeting of the Grafton Mass Disability Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Charlie Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website, www.grafton-ma.gov, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment if there are members watching. For this meeting, the Grafton Disability Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom as reflected on our agenda, which is posted on our commission's webpage on the town website identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Regarding meeting materials, all supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. I refer to our meeting packet aside from our agenda. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before doing so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And for any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. And lastly, for items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first read public comments received in advance of the meeting. There were none. Followed by real-time board and or applicant responses. There aren't any applicants with respect to our agenda. Public comments during the meetings will be conducted through the chat feature in Zoom. And finally, the chair will read real-time comments and questions typed by computer participants in the chat feature, followed by real-time board and applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. And Daryl Reining, I see your face. Could you confirm your attendance? Oh.
Here.
Okay, welcome, Daryl. Okay, so moving on to the agenda. Welcome, newest Disability Commission member Jen Pearson. Welcome, Jen. And town meeting is rescheduled from Monday, October 19th indoors to Saturday, October 31st at 2 p.m. on the high school football field. It's my understanding that there will be plans for a secondary space for accommodation at the high school gymnasium, but that is not official. Does anyone else have any announcements that would be pertinent to the Disability Commission that anyone has? Okay. What I'd like to do, because Matt often, being the super duper busy guy he is, and having a 7 o'clock select board meeting, I'm going to move item 4 out of order as our second item on the agenda regarding the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan with respect to the subcommittee update whereby Catherine Dorr and Matt Often had been voted as a subcommittee recently to break down this document into a more functional form. So if you could give me an update on any progress you've made in that respect, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just in the way of an update, Catherine and I have been having some schedule difficulties getting together. So we weren't actually able to meet. But I did email her and just ask her if it was okay if I took a stab at just putting together a bit of a model for the commission to look at and react to just see if that's something that we want to continue with, if there's value in it, and if, so if it's all right, I'd like to just present my screen and
Great. Yeah, please.
So what Roger did is he sent me the Word format of the document, which was very helpful for cutting and pasting. And let me share my, let's see. So I need to be either made a host or somebody needs to allow me to present.
Oh, that's weird.
It's just one of the settings. So if you click on,
okay, there you are. Do you want to change? Okay, go for it.
Thanks. Okay. So that's better. And let me, so just let me know if you can see that.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Great.
Yep.
All right. So all I did was I organized it in the way that I thought might be useful for us to turn this long monolithic document into something that we could kind of slice and dice a little bit and work with the department heads or whoever was responsible for doing the remediation activity. It would potentially help us prioritize and whatnot. So a lot of it was cutting and pasting and just a little bit of formatting. So I put in, and Christy, you had asked to sort of start tackling the municipal center. I think that makes sense for us to think about that. So I just took everything in the first couple of pages of that and put it into this document. So we have the facility name, which is just, police station, the various fire stations, in this case, the municipal center. The type of obstacle, and again, this was just taken from the document. So we have parking signage was sort of the type, their doors and drinking fountains and whatnot. So I just took their broad categories. I took their descriptions and put that into the description of issue fields, the remediation action. So this is what they're actually recommending. Where there were options, there's a couple of things that we can do. So in this case, the priority, feasibility, and timeframe were the same for these two options. And I just put the cost range, which was the 1,500 or to 5,000, depending on which option you chose. There was other ones where we had, so these were the same issues. We had options 1 and 2 for these, but the priority and feasibility were different and the costs were very different. So we can split those out potentially if we wanted to do that. So the nice thing about this is it allows you to kind of, you can do conditional formatting by priority, by time frame, by, I added a state, which is, so presumably we could track this over time. You'd have not started, in progress, completed. Again, these are just ideas for the commission to react to. I thought it was important to put in an owner.
Okay.
Right. And then the cost and the photo reference. So Basically, it's just taking this and it's making it something that is a little bit easier for us to work with the department heads on so that we can, focus on the priority 1 and 2 things that is owned by the DPW that haven't been started yet, for example.
Right.
Just a kind of an easy way for us to look at it that I think, and then since this
Matt,
is.
if I could ask you, on the cost and
Uh-huh.
for tracking purposes, are the high cost or the low cost and the high cost separate columns? So we can sort of, or is it even necessary to put those into columns? The low and the high? Yes, Daryl.
Personally, I don't think that we need to put those in separate columns because it's just a range and we don't actually know exactly
Okay,
how much it's gonna cost when they price it out.
okay.
I just wanted to comment, Matt, this is awesome. You
Yeah,
rock the free world.
Breath- Breathtaking. Thank you.
This gives
This-
me happy goosebumps. Nice
Okay.
job. Thank
I
you so
have
much.
Excel envy because I have a basic understanding of Excel and some of the functions, but the work you've done here is phenomenal, especially considering our many meetings where we express frustration that this self-evaluation did not come in an Excel format. So to recreate all of this is phenomenal.
Yep, this is how it should have come to us. But it is what it is. So I took the first 4 pages, I think, and just put it into this document. So it took me about an hour and a half once I got going to kind of do this. So it's some work. It probably would take a good day to 2 days to kind of take the entire document and turn it into this Excel spreadsheet. But I think it's worth, to me, as I was doing it and seeing, the potential utility of it, I think it's worth doing.
Yeah,
So, if you guys see value in this, I'm happy to just kind of keep going on it.
I think it's fantastic. I know that in prior meetings, Matt, we had Jen Anderson, Rec Department Director, had come in and of the it wasn't 40 pages of Excel, but it was 40 pages of document pertaining to the fields and rec piece. And she had mentioned that she had created some type of an Excel document. So it may be worth one of us doubling back with her to see in what format she is creating things. I would hate to have you start from scratch on the fields and rec piece if she already has a working document.
Sure. Yep, I'm happy to reach out to her.
Yes, Daryl.
except for, this isn't her document, this is ours.
Right.
and It's a way to track things. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to splice it in. I think that this has a organizational format that we totally understand. And I agree with Matt that we can, cut and paste these pages and are they
Okay.
done or not done? And this is,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, Matt, if you think if it would be redundant to just put it in, but I think a whole complete document with everything on it, with the status, the state, who owns it. I mean, that's.
And we could
definitely-
always share this with Jen to say, all right, give us an update on where all the things stand, or anyone else for that matter.
Yep. Yeah, so, good. So I'm glad that, broadly we're on track here. I was thinking about, if I was gonna take the municipal center, how would I organize it to be able to go and have a discussion with somebody?
Right.
And this is the way that I would do it. I'm happy to just kind of, continue to do this. Catherine, if you want me to show you how I've been doing this, and we can just, basically divvy it up. It's not
Sounds good.
particularly. It's not particularly complicated. Most of it's just cutting and pasting.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just tedious, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy to do that if the commission's happy with
Yeah, I
that
agree.
work, we can just kind of do it. And I think I can probably, just easily take half and just get it done.
Yeah, honestly, when I envisioned this document, this is pretty much exactly what I envisioned, so.
Here. Yep.
Awesome.
Jen
Okay, great.
Pearson.
Hi, I just wanted to say I really like how the layout was done, and I especially appreciate the colors you added for priority. Given this is my first meeting, could you just explain how you're sorting out what is being listed as a priority 1 versus a priority 4? I know you guys in the past meetings have talked about quote unquote low hanging fruit, but that was never clear to me. Like
Yep.
how that was being sorted. And also under feasibility, how are you kind of sectioning out what is feasible versus like easier or less easy?
So let me share the actual document that this is based on. I didn't make any of this up, neither did the commission. We had a study that we funded from the town that actually came up with everything that's in the spreadsheet that you see was put into this document here. So hang on just one second. So
It's on page, if I could interrupt you for a second, Matt.
course.
To both Jen and the rest of the commission, the ADA self-eval and transition plan, which is on the Disability Commission's webpage, the priority, feasibility, and timeframe regarding the priorities is on what's labeled as page 30. On the bottom right, the pages are numbered, so it's page 30 of the ADA self-eval and transition plan.
There it
So,
is.
yeah, oh, thank you, exactly, okay.
So what I was gonna do is I was gonna take this stuff and I also put it in as a tab so that if any of the department heads were looking to refer to the key basically for what does the priority mean, what does the feasibility mean in the time frame and the cost and whatnot, so just so that they'll have that as a reference. So I was going to put that reference material in there. I just haven't had time yet. But basically, it just came directly from this document.
Jen, can you see, is that, or anyone else for that matter, is that print large enough for you to quickly glance at to see what priority, feasibility, and timeframe mean? Oh, you can enlarge. I'm not a tech guru. The fact that you're able to enlarge that, I'm like in awe. So,
So this is where it came from. We may have different priorities. So one of the, I guess, to sort of wrap up the conversation on the document, if the commission's happy with sort of this starter for 10, then I'm sure that Catherine and I can find some time to divvy this up and work together to kind of continue the work. And then I will talk to Jen Anderson to see if she has any additional fields in her Excel spreadsheet to see if maybe there's something valuable to add. But other than that, we'll just continue on.
all right, yes, Jen.
I just wanted to say, I would suggest as you're going forward, because you just stated it's always possible that we might have slightly different priorities based upon what we can fill and meet, is just maybe having a notes field. And as we touch base with other places, if there's a note, like we have to wait until some sort of thing passes for the money or we're waiting on a grant, we'll at least have that information to refer back to.
That's a great idea.
That is, yeah, that's an excellent idea.
Where do we have a place where we can all share a document where I can stick this and you can all access it?
I am not, I don't know how functional the town website is as far as whether it's, I mean, I don't see where it couldn't be a public document, but I don't know how that would be done. I've never encountered anything on a municipal website, either on a committee or otherwise, whereby like file sharing is, we have that capacity. Anyone familiar with this? Christy, maybe?
I do it at work all the time with Microsoft Teams and Google Docs, but I don't know what the town policy is on that.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I'll just hang on to it then. With CIPC, we do have a Google folder that we use for collaboration. Just it's very document heavy with that group.
Okay.
So rather than emailing stuff around, it just tends to be a little bit more efficient to just have a folder where everybody can access it.
So there's no chance of you losing it because it's cloud-based?
No,
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a chance, but I always also have a synchronized document to other places. But That's fine. We'll just carry it forth. So talking about priorities, I just have a couple of minutes. And if it's all right, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to talk through,
Sure.
by November 1st, the capital submission forms have to be in to the town planner. And I'd like to suggest that we put something in so that we can get some funding to do some of this work.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of real organized thoughts around that. One idea is to just put together a request form that has a number on it that says we'd like to request $25,000 to fulfill some of the ADA plan. We're going to start with the things that are highly feasible and priority one across the town. And then the commission can decide later on what it wants to pick and choose. And that's where our priorities come into play.
All right. So,
Is-
so
isn't-
you're leaving in like a minute. So you're not rejoining us, Matt?
I don't think, if I can, I will.
Okay.
I doubt it.
Okay, we can continue this discussion regarding capital. I don't know what their expectations are regarding specifics, and whether that applies to boards and commissions versus department heads, but
Yep.
okay,
There's one way to do it would be to just pick some things, kind of designate somebody to pick some things that we think would be good options to put
Okay.
forth in a capital plan. Because this is a compliance issue with a kind of foundational study that we have, I think that the request would get a higher priority than some of the other things that might
Okay.
show up on the list. So, and I just would hate in the yearly budget cycle to forego the opportunity to request funding to carry out the plan. So
okay.
I'm sorry to kind of dump this on you, but
All right.
that's what I'm doing.
Okay, all right, thanks for your participation. Thank you for,
So can I just, before
Yes.
Matt leaves, can I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So in order to do this, we have to do this immediately because November 1st is going to come very quickly. So do we designate one of us to get in touch with the town administrator and find out how we would request some funding?
So the request can go, I
Or
don't know if the
The
request,
board of selectmen?
I don't think they're gonna be particularly helpful. The town planner is the one that, so Chris McGoldrick is the one that actually is organizing all the information to hand over to the capital improvement planning committee.
Okay,
So I,
Okay.
so I
That
think
helps.
Chris McGoldrick is probably the one to coordinate with.
Okay.
Yeah, he has the forms that somebody could, so my suggestion is if we want to move forward with this, probably the best way to do is to just discuss, you guys are a little bit more familiar with the self-evaluation plan than I am, and probably have some ideas about things that we could put in that might be higher priority, good things to have done in FY '22 would be. So just designate somebody as the person to coordinate with Chris to put together that request form, whether it came from this commission or from a department head that we would contact and say, hey, we have this ADA plan. You're responsible for this part of it. And we suggest that you put this request in for this, compliance remediation piece.
okay,
And so, yeah, I'd recommend just voting on that and then sending somebody out to talk to Chris and the department heads to kind of work
Okay.
through it.
sounds
all
So-
right,
good.
great.
All right. And I guess the last thing that I'll say is I did ask Carter in our select board workshop to put something, a goal in, an objective in for essentially carrying out this plan for the select board. So it's going to be something that will be on our goals and objectives and kind of reflected in the town's priorities.
Awesome.
So yeah, we did that last night. So
Awesome.
sorry to totally steal the meeting for the first 15 minutes, but
No, we're moving forward. I'm pleasantly pleased.
okay. I'm gonna go.
All right,
Good night.
thank you, Matt.
Thank you all.
Okay, so picking up where Okay,
Are you the, hang on a sec. I'm gonna assign, who am I gonna assign? Roger, are you logged in as the Board of Health?
yes.
Okay, then I'm gonna assign you the host and leave. I hope this works.
Okay, awesome. All right, great. As long as we didn't get nixed. All right. So I know that rather than, I mean, certainly for the matter of efficiency and time, this being a pretty large document, I want to touch on one thing that may be unnecessary as far as funding, but what came up, and I don't think we could clarify it here amongst us, was on the banter on social media in advance of town meeting. Someone had brought up Nelson Park, and we had had discussions in our previous meetings as to, okay, is it town owned? Who actually controls? Is it the trust that controls things? Is it the town that controls things? And that's why both Nelson Park and Broad Meadow, which I guess we lease, were not on the Community Preservation Committee warrant article for fall town meeting. And so that is one consideration that I think if there hadn't been any question about jurisdiction, that it probably would have been just a rubber stamp that park would have been added to the CPC warrant article. And so maybe it's contingent upon the town having jurisdiction, that maybe we could get that assigned, but that wouldn't necessarily be capital. That could be community preservation. As long as it's not routine maintenance, these things would technically, as the other parks do, fall under rehab. And so it may be trying to seek money that we don't need because it may be from another source, CPC. That was just one thought. So anyone else have any thoughts on some of the other capital items? It has to be $10,000 is my understanding. And I don't know what the shelf life has to be considered a capital project. And I will add and then open it up to everyone's opinion. I know that at town meeting, there's a warrant article for a community, capital improvement planning committee, CIPC bylaw, that speaks of the process by which capital submissions are done. However, it only speaks to department heads. The language doesn't speak or stifle committees being able to put things forward to town meeting. They can certainly do so outside of capital. How well received that would be is conjecture. Nor does it prevent citizens petitions from moving forward outside of the CIPC process. I think we would certainly want to work within the confines of the established structure so that we have as many stakeholders on board, such as CIPC Select Board and Finance Committee. Because after all, this whole budget does go before town meeting. Any thoughts? Don't all answer at once. Part of me says that it may be a bit beyond the scope of our time to pour through the many sections of the document. Not to slight Matt's suggestion, but I don't know how we could necessarily come up with a consensus on a submission versus maybe identifying and agreeing that through a vote or just by consensus that one of us speaks with a department head and we maybe pick an area to agree on rather than a specific item or items. And then one of us speaks with that stakeholder to then take forward the specifics between now and November 1 to digest the items in the self-eval and then come up with a capital request. I think one of the bigger challenges, even with that approach, is I don't know. I mean, I think all of the areas or sections in the self-eval have items that would probably fall under capital, the way capital is defined. And I know that Parks and Rec, which is a big portion of the document, is being addressed with the warrant article in front of town meeting regarding the 6 parks and accessibility. So
Roger,
yes,
so let me just try to understand this. If the recreation department has done a lot of the work themselves, and I remember Jen, when she came before us, said that because they had cost savings by not opening the Silver Lake recreation program,
yeah,
they were able to transfer those monies and do a lot of the work themselves and expend those monies for the capital or the ADA improvements, excuse me.
right.
So what we trying to do now is identify one department, and are we trying to come up with something that we would request the money for and give to that department to
Right.
use for the eval, or are we, I'm sorry, I kind of got lost here.
No, I think it was basically saying, okay, aside from and aside from our discussion that we'll have on grants and such, I think philosophically, for us to move forward with a certain mindset, a newer mindset about this, and not necessarily being reactive to this document, is to maybe approach not only the town budget, but the capital planning process in a way that really proactively tackles these items. Not just through grants, but as part of either as a fixed dollar amount or a percentage of the capital budget, to say we take these things seriously and here's how we're going to approach our budgeting. And so, yes, Daryl.
Well, and I'm just thinking, from my past experience with CIP, with the capital projects and related to the school districts, when I was on school committee, it was up to the department heads to submit those projects and costs to the capital, the CIPC. And then the CIPC would take those recommendations and they had their own process to rank. So when I was listening to Matt, I was thinking we need to talk to that Chris person.
Yeah.
And because he's planning board and he's coordinating, and so many of these projects might come in under him or under the municipal center. We need to appoint one of us to take that document, I think, and talk to him about it.
Okay.
And
That's a great idea.
It's my understanding, and I could be misunderstanding, but when we talked to Jeff, the guy at the state for the MOD, we do have to do this all through department heads. And so then there is no confusion for us as a commission.
Right.
It doesn't mean we don't rank stuff later and say, now this is a priority, but no matter what, we have to present the information for each department to the department heads, and they need to do something with it.
So maybe I'm wondering if an easier approach would be, and there's a challenge in that we have an interim town administrator, and I don't know how long his tenure is, but if we take just the municipal center, okay, which had a significant number of things, and Christy, you were doing that. Let's say there is a an improvement, let's say a shelf is in the wrong place or is a barrier. It isn't that, it isn't the department head necessarily, is it? Whose space they occupy that's in charge of that, or is it the town administrator? In other words, isn't the town administrator the one that's in charge of that whole building? So wouldn't
Yeah,
we, so, yes, Jen,
I was just thinking, I feel like this makes a really strong case for why we should see if we can push through the actual Excel sheet that Matt just started for us. I'm not sure what kind of time he and Catherine have, and I know he wasn't here previously, but if it's a matter of we're down to crunch time and being able to filter this easily to sort priority 1, priority 2,
Mhm.
and actually denote on there who is responsible for these, which ones already have monies earmarked. I'm available. I can help push it through this weekend. And I'm sure Matt will attest. I can be pretty aggressive and when I'm trying to get in touch with people. So I think that really should be like actively the first part, because if we have no way of easily sorting through this many pages,
right,
we're not going to be able to easily parse who we should be talking to. But if we can at least jam it into this Excel, sort it through priorities, let's say, okay, we have very little time. Let's only look at 1 and 2. Let's look at feasibility. If it's completely unfeasible, maybe it's not reasonable to even look at right now. Let's only go to say 2 or 3. And then we can already eliminate there. Then we can take a look, whose responsibility is this? Who do I need to talk to? And I think with that, it would be much easier work for us to touch base and get a hold of the people we need to figure out what we need to before the first.
all right. So let me ask you this though, as far as though what we had indicated and a lot of the traffic, at least pre-COVID, a lot of the traffic and services that were contained in the municipal center, there were a lot of items. And I'm wondering if the interim town administrator could be considered that department head for the whole building. In other words, if let's say the Board of Health office, okay, in the municipal center has a structural barrier, okay,
you're right.
the Board of Health, it isn't their capital request. Wouldn't it be the town administrator who oversees
Yeah.
that whole building? So wouldn't the easiest thing to do at this point with 1 week to go is to have our interim town administrator come up with some recommendations as he and his staff occupy that building on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, actually, when I was pulling into my garage today, I was like, oh my God, we have not met with the interim town administrator yet. And so when Tim suddenly left, we had met with Tim. He was aware of this. He knew, and we probably need to send a delegation in to meet with the interim town
Meet with
administrator.
Carter. Yeah.
Carter.
Carter
Carter.
Karanzini. Yes, Jen.
I was just going to say, I'm always looking for an excuse to meet the next person. And
All right.
while I've already talked to a few people in the select board, if I'm a master of asking questions. So if it's a matter of laying some groundwork, asking questions, I'm persistent. So I'm more
Okay.
than happy.
Okay. Are you, let me ask you, and doubling back, thank you, Jen, for offering your time. So to double back on both Christy and Daryl had met with Tim, former TA and assistant TA, Tim McInerney and Becca Meekins. So as to at least address continuity issues, Daryl and Christy, since those two staff members have since departed, are you willing to step back from that continuity, which has been, cut off at the heels? There is no continuity. Those two staff are departed. For Jen to introduce herself to Carter and to discuss the capital needs of the municipal center as it pertains to the ADA document. That seems to be, I mean, because we could be at this for hours. I mean, we've spent hours on this document in pouring through this and, not that I'm watching the clock, but we're at about 7:20. And, we have a full agenda to tackle. And my goal is to keep meetings under 2 hours, and some of our meetings have gone way above that. And I think people, may have a little bit of fatigue in that respect. So,
So let me hop in. Can I go with Jen? Because I feel like the municipal center is my baby. I really do. I really have
okay,
embraced the the barriers and non-compliance of the municipal building, and I really want to see some things from that report get moved along quickly. So I know the report, and Jen can ask the questions.
yep.
I
Jen,
actually just wanted
Jen,
to
do you have a
say,
question right now?
I
yeah,
just wanted to say, actually, that is perfect because I mean, if we have to good cop, bad cop, we can do that.
Yep.
And since I'm a novice, I would love to gain the experience that you've had. And maybe you can help me get to know your baby with the municipal center. So I think that's perfect.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion.
go for it, Daryl.
I
Daryl.
move that Jen and Christy be the emissaries to the municipal center and speak on behalf of the Disability Commission, introducing this to the interim town administrator.
Okay.
Perfect.
Do I have a second on that motion of Daryl's?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Daryl and seconded by Christie. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none by roll call. All those in favor, Daryl,
Yes,
Christie,
I
Catherine,
Aye.
Jen,
Aye.
and Roger, I declare the motion carried unanimously. Okay.
thank you.
Awesome. All right, so that ends the discussion on taken out of order item number 4. Are we all set to move on?
Yep,
Yep.
Okay. All right, so item number 2, Rec Department CPC Community Preservation Committee warrant article number 8 for the now rescheduled October 31st town meeting. And the request is for $210,000 for the ADA accessible routes and surfacing in the parks and playgrounds. And so what I simply did is I was simply acknowledge, we probably don't need to discuss it much. It's just keeping this as a sort of placeholder to revisit its progress. Okay, so what I did in the packet is I simply copied that page from the town meeting warrant and highlighted Article 8, including the Finance Committee recommendation in the affirmative. Finance Committee supports this, and it's the understanding though, and this kind of blends into the next item on the agenda, is that the I think CPC monies would be spent, if any grants are awarded, the CPC monies are spent before the grant monies, correct? Or is it the other way around? Can someone help me on this?
I do not know.
Okay. I don't know either, but it may be it may be inconsequential to us simply following this.
Fiscally, it
No,
makes
it would,
sense
no,
to
it'd be CPC monies because we're not going to wait for a grant, are we? We would simply spend the monies, and yes, because then the state would say, oh, okay, well, if the grant goes forward, the town would spend it first. That was my understanding. Does anyone else have any comment on article, on item number 2?
No, just item 2 and 3. Do we know when grant monies are gonna be awarded, when we're gonna find that out?
Okay, sometime in December, and I think it was toward the end of December that, okay, so I don't know when grant awards are being sent out. I know that our grant denial letter was, I think, literally on the last day of the year. I think it was 12/31, that we were notified that the ramps in the back of the municipal center, that grant was not awarded. Excuse me. So at some point, the awards and the declines will, at some point in December, be communicated. It's my understanding, though, from Jeff Dugan at the Mass Office on Disability, when I spoke with him in the past few days, that I guess they were going to start revealing these things at the end of last week. So I guess moving forward then to item 3, which is a natural progression. The rec and fields, it's almost there's only a $6,000 difference. So Jen Anderson did submit to Mass Office on Disability, and okay, so Jeff Dugan at the state confirmed that the state actually did fund the program, the grant program. And it's a 5-year funding chunk of money. They're not necessarily restricted to $2 million a year for 5 years, but it's a 5-year, $10 million program. So it's my understanding that they'll likely just divvy it out, $2 million over each of the 5 years. And there are 143 requests for this $2 million. So it's a very competitive thing that lots of people are paying attention to. So we'll see where that goes. Okay. The grant program wasn't necessarily, last year it was a matching thing. And so this year it wasn't. So I think a lot more people, they didn't have to have any commitment of anyone being on board to ask for the money. I mean, I say that anecdotally. I don't know how many grant submissions there were last year, but it seems like it would have been very easy for groups to submit requests where they didn't need to have a commitment by anyone, that they would be matching funds. So that was part A on item number 3 here. Grafton Public Schools B. Dr. Jay Cummings, our superintendent, along with Disability Commission endorsement, and the rec piece had our endorsement too. This revisits our prior discussion regarding the school ADA self-evaluation, okay? Even though the school had not had a self-evaluation, they were allowed to go for project grants too, and at least in this grant cycle, to tail off the municipal ADA self-eval. So there were 2 pieces that Dr. Cummings addressed: the 35 grand for an ADA self-eval. I think that he used, yes, that's a thumbs up down, right? I don't think that was necessarily costed out. I think he took that number. The number that was used on the municipal side was 35,000. All right. And so I think that was maybe a guesstimate. I'm not aware of any specific RFPs that arrived at that number. Or maybe just a coincidence, that's the exact number that the municipal ADA self-eval costs. A project grant for $280,000 for accessibility improvements at South Grafton Elementary Playground. It would be a big chunk of money even to get part of that, considering their $2 million budget, but you never know. Okay. So those are the 2 grant submissions, and it was fortuitous that I called Jeff Dugan at the state. I included an email chain to document that I actually communicated an email form to Mr. Dugan and resubmitted the text of Dr. Cummings' app, because there was a glitch on the state's end, and after the deadline, turns out that all of Jay's work was for naught, or would have been. And so Jeff Dugan was gracious enough to actually manually enter everything into the system. So that was considered under the deadline after the fact. So Dr. Cummings did write a letter to the commission dated October. I sent it to you folks, like October 6th or so. I don't know. Yeah, and he was basically had an overview to us and thanked us for our support. Actually, no. October 6th is our support letter. October 13th, he had an overview of the costs for each of these projects with a thank you. And then the third is the Grafton Public Library expansion, $212,900 submitted by Library Director Beth Galloway. Now, we were unaware of the application prior to its submission. I spoke with Beth Galloway a couple days ago, and she had acknowledged that, I guess, she was going to go for a grant last year, but was told by various folks to put the brakes on. And that's according to her. I'm not sure if it was felt by leadership, certain administrative leadership, that was competing with the other submission you may recall last fall regarding the ramps. So she revisited this, and it was, I think, on a follow-up email to like departments and such, that she put it in under the wire, and it was first initiated by her after our last meeting. And it doesn't speak to anything specific other than to offset the cost of the project. And it's my understanding that the library building folks at the state level expect, and it's understood that libraries and boards of library trustees make a good faith effort to apply for all grant monies possible. So when this came about, she did it of her own accord, and she was kind of apologetic to me, and I was like, no, don't worry about it, Beth. I mean, it would have only helped had you had Disability Commission endorsement, but at the same time, it remains to be seen with the amount of monies available and the number of requests available, whether, how successful this request will be, considering that it's already funded. But it's out there just the same. So she actually was pleasantly surprised that the Disability Commission had been revived. She was not aware of it until very recently, at the time she put in this submission. So I guess it speaks to our work at the very basic level to get the word out that we exist in the first place. I think a lot of people aren't aware, let alone of the ADA eval, but they're not even aware that such a commission exists or has been revived. So, so she was excited that, that we're doing the work that we're doing. So, any questions or comments on these, the ADA Improvement Grant Program? Okay. All right, so we should hopefully hear something, and it would be great if, we could get awarded these monies. But when we look at everything here on A and C, these things may already end up being funded. So, I mean, my own comment personally, without representing the commission, is if we could get that school ADA self-eval going, I would be really pleased. So, okay, so that is out of the way. All right, minutes. As you all know, and Jen, you probably don't know, I messed up in formatting the minutes that Daryl Reining had submitted, the draft minutes of May 21st and July 16th, and it ended up being in landscape, and a whole bunch of text was cut off. So we tabled this from our last meeting. So All right, do I have a motion to accept the draft meeting minutes of May 21st, 2020? All right,
I'll make a motion
okay, Christie,
to accept the draft minutes from May
yes,
2020.
yeah. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second, Jen.
Well, second,
Well, act-
Jen, I don't think you can vote on them because you weren't here.
yeah, I'm gonna ask that, I mean, not to get technical, but I'm gonna ask someone else to second that was at that meeting.
So I'll second.
Okay, who was that? I was looking down at my paper. Who seconded that?
Me.
Daryl.
Oh, Daryl, okay. Okay.
Next time, Jennifer, you can vote because you'll have been at the meeting, but you have to abstain because we weren't at the meeting, so.
Okay, so a motion made and seconded. Do I have any discussion? All right, then being the reviewer that I am, I do have some corrections that need to be made. There some spelling, a lot of them are just spelling people's names and things like that, and some
Can
website.
you give me page and paragraph?
Yes, all right, at the top, instead of agenda/meeting notice, that should be deleted and say minutes. Right above the date. Okay. Let me know when I can move forward.
Go ahead.
All right, under members present, you forgot yourself, Daryl. You were there. So don't forget yourself. So,
That's not good.
no, and so under guest speakers, Jen Anderson, it's Andersen, not SON. You have no idea how many emails I've sent to her, like way in the beginning, that got kicked back because I was misspelling her name.
Okay, go.
All right, so on the second page, at the very top, under the medical reserve court announcement,
Yep,
it's www.maresponds.org, not MA-response. So it's MARESPONDS.org, Mass Responds.
okay.
Yeah, MAResponse.org. At the very bottom of the page, Jen Anderson's name simply needs to be corrected with SEN. Okay. And are you ready, Daryl?
Yep,
All right, on the third page, at the bottom, on section 4, discussion of state and federal guidance, I think maybe on social media or other places, Melissa Lackey, she was maybe known as Melissa either Constantino Lackey, but ignored that sort of other name. So it's Melissa Lackey.
yep. I
LACK.
make that mistake all the time.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I feel
Fair
so
enough.
bad about that. That's terrible.
Okay. And so, and then on the fourth page,
Yep.
fourth paragraph down, it's the second word in the paragraph, key takeaways. It's the word takeaway, not takeaways. So
Okay.
word filled it in for you.
Yeah.
It's so takeaways.
So wait a minute, correct it to what?
Take-
One
Takeaway?
word.
Key takeaways. In other words, it's separated into the word take and ways.
Oh,
It's takeaways. Key
gotcha.
takeaways. Now, takeaway, is that one
That's
word?
one
I think-
word. Yeah,
it's
that
one
is
word.
one word.
Okay, on the following page, all right, so what I'm wondering though is on the following page, and this is where you both, you submitted this sort of as a duo because I forgot to tell Christie to stop taking minutes after Daryl had come back into the meeting and you were both taking minutes. So I see that that's in boldface. I mean, it's up to you whether you want to leave it in bold. It doesn't matter, but just for readability, you may want to take it out of bold, at least the those things that aren't numbered. It doesn't matter to me. But at the bottom of that, under 6B, it was Bob Perla, not De Perla. So the DE in front of his name does not belong.
You know, we just rename half the town every time we write up the minutes, don't we, Daryl? I
Yeah.
mean, that is kind of funny. I'm so, and I
Can I-
apologize. I really do, but I just.
I remember back in the 70s, I was about 10 years old, and my dad had his moment in the sun in front of a large group of people. It was during the Iran hostage crisis. And he was introduced in front of a large group as Mr. Tehran, and he was mortified. So I guess you have to just roll with this. My name has been hacked apart in more ways than you can imagine. So it's Bob Perla,
Gotcha.
and I'm thinking of Bob and his health. So.
Yeah.
And then all right, so the following page right before the adjournment, the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.
All right, so since you've noted, well, first it's Perla, not De Perla, under Bob's name, 3 lines down.
Sorry. That,
And
we
then
are
motion to
so
adjourn
bad.
the meeting. I would ask that you say motion was made by Melissa, or later on at the bottom line, it says, it lists everyone's name fully, Melissa Lackey, and then it's actually Lackey. So maybe motion made, we know her as Missy, so either call her Missy in both places or Melissa in both places.
Go
So
for it,
maybe-
Daryl. Correct all my mistakes.
I was gonna
please.
So
say-
maybe we call her Melissa in line 1, and then,
No,
And
she's
then-
Melissa. We should use her full
Yes,
name.
we should.
okay. All right, so then that, on the top line, that needs to be Melissa, and then her last name is spelled Lackey.
Gotcha.
And seconded by Catherine Dore. I'm sorry, Catherine, I'm being punchy.
It's okay. I went to vote early today and they misheard it as Gore. So
Um,
All
okay,
right,
I'm
So
glad we got through those minutes.
All
Okay,
right.
so as amended,
as amended, any discussion on the motion with the changes as amended? Okay, all those in favor by roll call, Daryl Reining,
aye.
Christy Proctor,
Aye.
Catherine Dorr,
aye.
okay, Jen Pearson.
She has to
That's-
Is
abstain.
this where I abstain?
Yep,
Yes.
okay, and
I
Good
Roger
job.
abstain.
Good
Trahan.
catch, Jen.
I abstain
Don't let Roger
courteously.
tell you what to do.
All right. And Roger Trahan, I declare the motion carried 4-0 and 1 abstention.
Okay,
Okay,
that's for May.
all right, so that's May 21. All right, so if you want to forward them to me, I can just forward them to the clerk.
I have no problem
Town
doing
clerk,
that
it's up
myself.
to you. Oh, okay, okay, that's fine. All right, thank you. I'm always just, all right, so, okay, minutes for,
July 16th.
yes, July 16th. Hold on one second, I'm just trying to flip back and forth here. Okay, do I have, all right, hold on one second.
I see what's coming.
Hold on, I'm just, okay, so no one was absent. I just wanted to see whether we had a quorum of those present that would constitute, all right, so actually it would be those, all right, so, all right, do I have a motion to accept the minutes, the draft minutes of July 16th?
I will make a motion to accept the minutes of July 16th as we go through and amend them.
Okay, is there a
Alright.
second? All right,
Second,
Daryl seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just that
Okay.
once again, we have butchered people's names to oblivion, including Jen Anderson. But I will commend Daryl for writing the right last name for Bob.
All right.
Made some progress by July.
All right. All right. So, the same with the striking across agenda and putting in the word minutes.
Yep.
Okay. And hold on one second. All right, and then moving forward, under those present, Matt goes by Matt with one T. So there's a number of places that I'll point out where that second T needs to be deleted.
Can you just, you don't have to point them all out.
Okay,
I'll catch the name.
okay. All right, so then, and then right after it's Melissa Lackey, not Constantino.
Yep.
And so the same goes for under commission reorg with both Matt and the last name Lackey.
Yep.
Okay, and under that reorg, and then on the second page, 3B, it's Jen Anderson, EN, and then the same with Melissa's last name
Yeah.
on the first.
So
and
you
last.
don't have to correct names.
Okay.
Already told me I need to look right through all the names to make sure I
Gotcha.
spelled them
All right.
correctly.
Okay, so the following page under grant opportunities, there is a couple things there on the second to last line. Instead of Millview, that's Mill Villages. But here's where I'm wondering, okay, that sentence that is the last word. It says Daryl, and then it says blank. Is the park superintendent for
Oh, I
Mill
didn't
Vill-
know his last name. So
Okay.
I knew I was gonna have to fill that in.
Oh, okay. Oh, so Daryl, so that was the person, so Daryl is the Mill Villages superintendent?
Yeah,
Someone that-
Daryl.
okay. Okay, so whoever that is, just fill it in whenever.
I was
or
hoping
just
one of you
delete that.
guys knew.
No, all right, okay, so let me ask you this. Does that sentence even need to be in there? We could just strike that sentence.
Does it? You guys tell me.
I mean, so-and-so is the park superintendent for Mill Villages. It's not the Mill Villages committee, is it?
No, he works for the town. And she said his name, which is why I noted it. Because she consulted with him and he was doing his own work on
So
behalf.
do we have a consensus then, if you're okay with, I mean, do you think it's on the town website? I don't want to hold up the minutes for any one of us doing research after the vote.
All right, so
Fine.
I'll just strike the sentence.
Is everyone okay with that?
I agree. I'm okay
Okay.
with it.
I don't think it substantively changes the discussion or the documentation. And then under 4, minutes of 227 and 521, it says 4 to nothing to 1.
Yep.
Abstain tension. It was a combination of 2 words.
Oh,
So it could be 4 to 0 to 1 abstain or 401 abstention, whatever you want to do.
okay.
Yep, and then,
Motion carries, okay.
yeah, and then again, yeah, the last page, yeah, the whole Anderson thing, so.
Jen Anderson, if you're watching this, I truly apologize.
I do too. Boy, we totally went Swedish instead of Norwegian.
Right?
That's a insult to all Scandinavians.
Oh, boy. So, all right, so does anyone have any further discussion on the motion to accept the 7/16/2020 meeting minutes as amended? All right, hearing none. All those in favor by roll call, Daryl,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Jen,
Abstain.
okay, and Roger Tran, aye, by declare the motion carried by a vote of 4 to nothing and 1 abstention. Okay. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, so 9:17 minutes. Missy did not have those to me yet. So I will table that to our next meeting. One of the things that Mass Office on Disability had indicated, and this could be any committee, is in a perfect world to try to get like draft minutes to a committee like a couple weeks before the next meeting. But I mean, I can digest them on very short notice. I don't know what lead time people need or expect, but you know, hopefully those will come to me, you know, so we can vote on them in November. Okay, old business. Grafton celebrates the holidays. Do we have any update on that? Who was going to speak? Was it you or Christy with Jen?
With Jen Anderson with an E. Yes.
Yeah.
So I have not heard back from her. I did send her an email approximately 1 month and 1 day ago, and haven't heard back. So I can follow up with her.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And I'm sure they're trying to figure out so many things right now. You know, I mean, I think the big thing on their plate right now is there a townwide Halloween? So,
Right.
anyways,
Yeah. I feel I do understand that there were a lot of outdoor venues, ones that could have social distancing, but there were so many craft and other indoor venues or venues at the little train around the bank near Extra Mart. You know, you got to wash it down every time there's a group of kids. I can appreciate the challenges of trying to make this work that even reasonably resembles what we're used to. So anything that Jen and others can pull off, anything is going to be a benefit to the community. We've had a rough year. So, all right. So do you want to follow up with her on
yes,
that?
I'd be happy to.
All right. Thanks, Christy. Anyone have any discussion on Grafton celebrates the holidays? Okay. Municipal training. All right. Call me Johnny come lately. All right. So Jeff Dugan, Assistant Director for Community Services, Mass Office on Disability. It was only today, I'll fess up, a couple hours before this meeting, that I actually formally acknowledged and emailed both Carter Terenzini, our interim town administrator, and Jay Cummings. I don't think that the municipal trainings on disability awareness were restricted to municipal non-schools, but I think we did discuss and acknowledge that they would probably have different audiences, and perhaps it could be a separate meeting for each, depending on what the subject matter was, and that he was available during the day. And so I outlined Jeff being available in November or in any future months to come in or via Zoom and do some type of video Zoom, invite people in, whether you call it in service or not, record it for those who wouldn't be able to make it. And then that could serve as a resource regarding various, disability matters, whether it's structural barriers, whether it's programming, whether it's hiring, absence management, you name it. And so I put that forth out there that, okay, what are your thoughts? Because I think that whatever stakeholders there are, and I think all of us in the community could theoretically say we're a stakeholder, but we talked about department heads, boards and committees, emergency management, MRC, CERT, other folks who could benefit from this. So, so I put that forth to both Carter and Carter Terenzini and Jay Cummings in an email today for their feedback on helping coordinate the mechanics of these in-services. So, so that's where it is right now. Jeff Dugan had some commitments and time off that that kind of prevented an October timeframe, considering all our preparation for town meeting as well. Okay, so section 6C. We've revisited these issues a number of times. Grafton Land Trust regarding ADA Mass Architectural Access Board issues. Grafton Land Trust Act law. Right now, that's kind of, there's no movement on that right now. I think that the land trust is sort of waiting to hear more from the state. Okay. This was a unique one, as you may recall, in that after that accident that ended up, there were two accidents, one that ended up with a car in the river. Everyone got together and tried to fix that intersection. Well, it turns out that Grafton Land Trust was asked by conservation to allow that whole area to be filled with stone and things like that, and to prevent silt runoff. In doing so, DPW, Paul Canoyer and his staff put some gravel down that that Scott Ricker had made a formal complaint about, that it wasn't a firm and stable surface. It wasn't packed down enough, that it may have been slightly loose underfoot. So there's I'm not going to say multiple competing priorities or people, but this is going to need to be a coordinated effort, not only to address this issue, and that the town in the land trust will need to hopefully coordinate something. But also, and I remember Matt often acknowledging in a recent meeting that moving forward, we need to probably be more mindful of these type of issues, that when we do work on someone's property or a public area, does it create a compliance issue? And it apparently did in this instance. So perhaps an introduction between Mr. Canoyer and Land Trust to maybe have a discussion as to whether there are resources at the town level that could maybe finish this top surface off. And so I think that the Land Trust is of the opinion that they're of more limited resources than the town. And since the town actually has the trucks and maybe the materials to finish this off, it could be an easy fix. The other thing was, though, that there was no accessible parking space in that area. And it appears that one could be placed to the left of the entrance with, there would be a van accessible space with proper signage. And you could probably put the access lane aisle to the right, abutting where people would normally walk into that area. So I guess I will follow up with Rob Aberg, who's president of the Land Trust, to see if he wishes to connect with Mr. Canoyer and see if this could be an easy fix. Otherwise, at some point, if nothing is done, Mass Architectural Access Board will necessarily act on this. And so I can put it on next month's agenda to see if that has been, if any progress has been made. Something has been fixed. Item C number 2, accessible parking space at Roney Park.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, did everyone, oh, you know what, Jen, you weren't on the commission yet. Did everyone else get my email with the picture that Paul took?
Mhm.
So Paul Canoyer had his staff do the, make that properly a van accessible sign, and did all the proper markings, including the access aisle. So Jen, do you know where Roney Park is? On Bridge Street? Okay, so if you were to go in and at the flagpole, take a left, right before you get to the Brickton area, there's a parking spot. It's a single parking spot. It wasn't marked properly. It did have an accessible sign, but it didn't say van accessible, and the markings weren't there. So Next time you drive by, it's very freshly painted and accessible. And even though I hadn't received confirmation from Bob Berger yet that he had revisited that and officially made the confirmation that it was accessible, because the complaint by Mr. Ricker also was to Bob Berger. All right. So, but Mr. Ricker did acknowledge in an email to me that it met all of his concerns. So that issue has been properly addressed. Accessible parking, I did a few days ago send an email to Mr. Berger asking for the disposition of the 122 pub and the post office pub issues regarding the encroachment of the outdoor seating tents on accessible spaces. I know that Mr. Berger did on a second occasion follow up with each of those businesses, or at least he said he was going to do so. And so I hadn't heard back. I think once they remove their outdoor seating, the issue is fixed until next spring, except that I think there was an issue with the post office pub or the 122 pub, one of the two, I forget which, where it had to do with, I think the sign was not affixed permanently. It was in like a concrete movable block, and it may not have been in the right place. I don't recall the specifics, but so it wasn't only the seating that was the issue at one of those two places. So, so you'll probably find this on our next month agenda for disposition. So do we have any discussion on any of those items under the ADA MAAB follow-ups? No. All right. All right. So under new business, I had put 3 things under new business in my own head. I left that blank, and I will get Jen Pearson. I will get to your email that you sent to the commission members, but I would like to quickly touch upon 2 other items and then open it up to the committee before we speak to your email and suggestions. So Jen, you will be attending the Mass Office on Disability Summit on Thursday, the 29th of October. And I'm looking down at my phone to see, okay, so without expecting you, Christy, to look at all the wording of this, it's basically, this year will focus on reasonable accommodations within employment and socialization in a virtual world. I think that it recognizes, it's going to highlight those accommodations and socialization in resources during the pandemic that can be applied to both our personal and professional lives. I actually signed up for this, but I'm likely going to back out, considering an extremely busy and ambitious work schedule, especially in light of you, Jen, saying you'd go. And so do you have any comments or input regarding your familiarity with these summits or your attendance at this one?
This will be my first attending, but it is also my first in having a diagnosis and having reached a place where I'm comfortable openly stating I'm a person with a disability. So I'm excited to go. I think their content is so relevant and pertinent, and I would love to just gobble up all the resources I hear about, any information I get. I'm gonna just try and write it all down and make sure I share it with everyone.
Awesome. And so don't be shy to send us materials and email after the fact, but before next meeting. But I will put you on the agenda for next meeting as a follow-up on this particular summit. I'm unable to attend. It's just a busy time. So I'm really psyched, Jen, that 2 things: that you're attending, and that it's cool that it's opening up about disability You know, a lot of people would be, shy about these things, but so thanks for opening up. I also had under new business, this could be considered old business. But last September, when the Grafton Common Historic District Commission came before us regarding the brick walkways, and we had a very robust, I think it was 35 or 40-minute discussion on the accessibility project that was a community preservation CPC project. And it was about replacing each of the directional asphalt walkways with brick. And there is an update. One of the concerns that came about, and we had agreed, and Paul Scarlett had mentioned and affirmed that an arborist would be consulted. Initially, they only had a landscape architect on board, but there was an arborist that they would consult with to see what, if any, compromising of those tree root systems would occur by basically air blasting the dirt away from the roots. And the preliminary findings of the arborist, there was a concern for the impact to the trees. And that was confirmed by an arborist preliminary findings. I don't have a report, but I texted back and forth with Paul Scarlett. So those findings are driving further evaluation in order to determine how best to proceed. So, that the community should expect to hear of the findings of the arborist reasonably soon. I would hope in the next month. Okay. And I would add that although I didn't talk about it and none of us really spoke to it last September, but I think that the idea of shade trees in hindsight is actually a very important part of mitigating folks who may otherwise be susceptible to sunlight. Either maybe they have a condition, or maybe they just, when it gets real hot, shade is better than sun to a lot of people. Maybe folks with cancers that, skin cancers that really shouldn't be in the sun. Things like that, where, shade is it can be to some people so important that if you compromise those trees and the better footprint of that common becomes direct sunlight, it may actually keep people away. It may be an accessibility issue if those trees are compromised. It didn't come up during that discussion, but I think now more than ever, I really thought about that idea of how uncomfortable it is on a hot day to be in direct sunlight at a park versus being in the shade. And I say that from an ableist, viewpoint, but I could only imagine it if I was susceptible to heat more than other folks, or due to medication I needed to stay out of direct sunlight, or for whatever. So I'm looking forward to that, those overall findings. I would hate to have any more trees on the common lost, because since our September of 2019 meeting, there are 3 trees that have been gone on the common. That large one next to the gazebo bandstand that fell on our holiday tree, our Christmas tree. So those needed to be removed. And then another, one of the 2 goalpost trees, as I call them, that were kind of leaning, that were then closest to the common. One of those was felled about a week ago because of fungus. And I don't know if the second one is susceptible, but I think people are paying, a little bit more attention than they were a year ago to the health of those trees. And so, that's that. Anyone have any comment on their recollection or input on that discussion about accessibility of those walkways? I know I'm verbose tonight, aren't I? And that this kind of goes back, this actually segues into the next piece of, which was Jen's email, in that the whole idea of one of her suggestions having a sort of follow-up graph and to-do list and checking things off is those things of revisiting our prior discussion and what is the disposition of those items that we've discussed or voted on. But regarding, did each of you receive on 10/19, Jen tried to email something, but then it got kicked back. I guess, Jen, you tried to email Disability Commission group website. And that got kicked back to you. So you requested that I send it on your behalf. So I forwarded Jen's email to everyone. And thank you for all of those ideas. I think we've discussed many of them at our prior meetings. Some of them we've gotten to, some of them we haven't. And we discussed one of those tonight as far as the self-evaluation and piecing that out. I don't want to speak for you, Jen. And I had highlighted on my own printed copy, breaking these items down into very large, topics, because I know that we could spend a whole meeting and a workshop meeting on some of these items, and so I'll let you. I'll give you the floor, and I'm going to respectfully ask that that you speak to these at a high level. So it's all yours, Jen.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure you mean by speak to them at a high level, but I'm going to do my best anyway.
Well, no. Okay. So what I mean by that is that, and people know that I can be a very talkative person.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one meeting in particular, I think it went like 3-point-something hours. And I think for the matter of time, I will acknowledge that those very substantive and valid recommendations could be the subject of a whole meeting, is what I'm saying. In other words, it is a 3-page long email, and so you put your thoughts down on paper about the recommendations. So, I mean, without rereading the 3 pages, if you could, touch upon each of these items.
I can summarize.
Thank you. I was at a loss for words. Summarize.
No,
Thank
and
you.
Since I hadn't had the benefit of meeting anyone yet,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I was able to fully express some of these ideas because, I've been watching back through some of the commission meetings because I wanted to try and keep track of what's been going on. But I know there's always the things that happen behind the scenes that I haven't been privy to. So, but yeah, I'm kind of an ideas person. I can be verbose myself. But I think even one of my recommendations kind of almost touches on something we started scratching at the edges at, which is finding a solution, maybe even as simple as a Google folder, if that's something we're allowed to use, where we can kind of collect all of these documents that many of us touch and have to reference. And so the first 2 points in my email boiled down are, at least in terms of things that would be helpful to me. And I think going forward and down the road, these things will continue to bring benefit should there be membership changes, new people added to the commission, and ability to quickly touch base on things that are on an action list. Your basic action list of, hey, here's things we've brought up in meetings. We can't do anything with them now, but we have to cycle back to them. Maybe not next meeting, maybe not for 6 months. But if we have it written down somewhere, we can touch base. We can always do the things behind the scenes. Hey, I got to call this person. I have to check on this, but hey, let's add this to the agenda. Nobody's forgotten. It was partially inspired by an action item list I saw that the select board's been using, which I think was pretty smart. And the other one that piggybacks on that is just kind of a resource guide I think would be really helpful. Um, there's a lot of things that are there in our charge as a commission. And I think it would be a good start, even if it's only something minor, to link to the web pages that have the ADA, that have the things that we might need to frequently reference. So we're sure, hey, somebody's talking about this. I can quickly just pop it open during the meeting. We can add some other references like contacts with Mass Office of Disability and other larger ones. And we can also add smaller things down the road, given we actually have time, that things that might come up that might be useful if the public needs anything from us.
Right.
The third item was just some random chat that is a random idea I had because I was watching, I believe it was maybe the community development or they were talking about the holidays, the upcoming Black Friday type stuff, and the importance of trying to promote shopping locally here in Grafton. And I just was thinking, like, this is an ongoing discussion in the disability community that oftentimes when people are talking about, hey guys, don't shop off Amazon, support your local businesses. For many people with disabilities, that's not usually an option, either because they have a lack of access, they have a lack of the specific items that they require. And I thought it might be good for us to, take a look at ways that we might help, even minor ways, empower local businesses to make small changes that increase accessibility, whether it be a training, a pamphlet, a spreadsheet, maybe there's resources the MOD has. But I just, small things. I use an example in the email for people who might need a screen reader. If a local eatery doesn't have an updated menu and they only ever write it really beautifully on a chalkboard, it looks fantastic. It would be great marketing on Instagram, but that's going to be a place that a person who can't read easily or see with, those kinds of chalk and, even someone who just has an older pair of glasses, they're going to have a challenging time and they might avoid that place just out of fear or embarrassment, not being able to read it. So pointing out the small ways, the small costs, simple things that businesses locally can do to just improve accessibility, I think would go a long way. It doesn't have to be as big as, hey, let's get on whoever you're leasing from and put in a ramp. Ideally, yeah, that would be great. But, realistically, we can start small and just show, hey, all of our local businesses are actively trying to include as many people as we can, as quickly as we can. And that might help in terms of bringing a new business. We can highlight how actively we are trying to make all businesses inclusive for everybody. The last point was a concern partially that speaks to my own experiences. And so much of this is directly related to the COVID-19 experience. I know my family is unique. I'm more often than not the exception and not the rule. But I find that sometimes things are overlooked until you have a quirky family that's outside the box like mine. And so bringing these kinds of challenges to the attention of the commission, I don't know, the school committee, the superintendent, whoever it might be, might actually help some individuals in the community going forward, maybe something nobody had considered. But as a parent, as a person who struggles with some challenges with executive function. I have 4 school-age children, three of whom are now finally in the same school. Last year, they were 3 separate schools. Now I'm down to 2 separate schools. However, even though it's not as chaotic as last year, there's different teachers, there's different advisors. My kids have IEPs, and so there's also setting up for this meeting, setting up with this occupational therapist, setting up with this adjustment counselor. And I feel like the email system can be a little overloaded. And it got me to thinking with all the articles we see about the struggles people might be having, both with cognitive decline, increased rates of depression and anxiety related to the types of isolation and the restrictions we've been placed under. I cannot be the only one struggling. I mean, I struggle in a good year, so everybody struggling now is probably me in a good year, which was still a struggle. So I think it's really important to reach out and see if we can talk to the school about, You know, when we talk about schools, of course, we're like spot on. Here in Grafton, we're amazing with, we got to help these kids. We got to make sure we don't take our eye off the prize when it comes to special education. But a lot of the invisible disabilities happen to be ones that are highly heritable. And I can't think throughout my entire life if I've ever had asked if I, as a parent, needed an accommodation to help me be as active and engaged as, you know, schools expect you to be, your kids would hope you would be, you want to be. And, you know, there could just be simple things like a person might be temporarily struggling. And so, yeah, it's easy to say, oh, if you have an issue, come to us. But a lot of people aren't going to ask for help. Many people who struggle with a disability don't even want to identify as having a disability and understand this is partially why I'm being so blatantly open about it. I think seeing people be unashamed and being willing to stand up and represent is important. But I think we could be doing a lot in terms of inclusion, in reaching out, making sure we're asking, is anybody having a hard time? Is this too many emails? Is there anything that we can do to help you so that you and your children are as safe and able to participate as possible throughout the school year? You know, I couldn't help but think this doesn't seem particularly efficient, slightly redundant if I update a teacher about, you know, a rough day. And then either the teacher has to inform the occupational therapist, or I then again have to inform the occupational therapist. And I couldn't help but think maybe they can touch base with their tech people, see if there's some element of the learning management systems that are already in place for the school systems where, you know, I can just, as a parent, have all of my children's providers tagged to my child. So as a parent, I can go on my account, here's my kids, I can click on the kid I need to talk about, my messages are there. And if I think something's relevant to specific teacher and certain providers, I can just tag them all so they all get the update at once, which would be more efficient, would reduce that kind of redundancy, would make sure everybody stays in loop, and I think would help improve care. So while I know that's fairly specific, it really made me think about, can we talk to whoever it is we need to talk to about our parents being supported? And is there anything that we can do? Is there anything the school system can do? Is there anything the town can do to ensure that we don't have people who are silently suffering?
Thank you, Jen, on that piece. That may be a good segue into just doubling back on your attendance at the MOD Summit. That I think the timing couldn't be better, I guess, with these recommendations, that you may likely find yourself, being the proactive person that you are, connecting with all those resources, people on other disability commissions, people who are connected to the schools, and using this as a great opportunity to really maybe find out that there are other people that may be, or other towns or school districts that are addressing this very issue. So I'm hoping, you know, they, you know, rather than reinvent the wheel, it's great when we can sometimes find that a resource like another disability commission or someone at the state says, oh yeah, we're already doing this, and here's how we have done it, and help walk us through this process. And I do look forward to that day, hopefully sooner rather than later, that our website and web pages are compliant and contain the information that really reflects our charge as a commission, regarding people actually looking to us versus just Googling things and getting it all in one place. I think my own frustration has been that a lot of these other committees and such, including finance committee, school committee, select board, do have paid staff that take their minutes, that during the day can keep track of these things. And that's been my frustration, that basically we have to divvy up these tasks to stay on track. In an environment that necessarily has turnover. We've had commission members come and go in just a little over a year. Folks that had agreed to tackle certain things and unfortunately, they haven't, they've since left the commission. And then we find ourselves having to pick up the ball again. So I think my own observation is that anything we can do to stay on track within the confines of us not having paid staff is going to be a good thing. So, do you have any other comments or talking points on your email regarding the recommendations that you've made?
Mainly that, given the turnover that you guys have seen, and the fact that I didn't even know, like I said during my interview, I didn't know who I was replacing because the website was so out of date that I actually thought it was a person previous. And I didn't know that Disability Commission had ever not really been going. So
Yeah,
it really hinders people's ability to get active and involved. But I think one of the easiest things that might be good, because given the kind of year and the risks that are just around for everyone,
yeah.
having a Google folder, making sure, if we have to step out, at least some of the things that we've been working on can be kept in there, saved in there. So at least whoever, takes it up when there's time or that person is, replaced, isn't having to start over from scratch.
Mhm. Right. Awesome. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'm sure in the course of our work in our charge, we're going to be tackling a lot of these things, and I'm glad that at least the website is now, or the webpage accurately reflects our membership, minutes, agendas, meeting packets, the self-eval and such, and we'll only expand on that as a resource. So what we can do is we will continue to tackle these things, and I will simply put out there that while respecting everyone's tight schedules, there may be some times that we may want to add a meeting during the month, depending on what we're addressing. And whether that's a workshop meeting or a regular meeting, it doesn't have to be on our usual Thursday, but it's one way to keep the meetings flowing and avoiding some of the lengthier meetings that we had in the past. Prior to, does anyone else have any new business items before we are on the tail end of adjourning? No. All right. So for the recording, I don't know if this, I think as I'm looking at as my screen is looking at me, okay, I think it's catching me sort of backwards. And so I wrote this both forwards and backwards for the screen, because on the edited copy, this is going to introduce us as a Disability Commission, but is this backwards to you folks?
No.
Okay. All right. So just so right now, it says Grafton Board of Health. All right. For anyone in the future, 100 years from now, looking at this, we have the Grafton Disability Commission meeting. Okay. Now the Board of Health, October 22nd, 2020. I'm Roger Trahan. So I think these Zoom meetings can be confusing because we borrow the Zoom accounts of various committees. And so I show up as Grafton Board of Health or Grafton Select Board or whatever, and people may be unaware of what meeting they're looking at, okay, on replay. Moving on to the next meeting, our regular third Thursday schedule is November 19th at 6:30. I'm not aware of anyone's conflicts. And what that would do is it would put us back onto the regular Zoom account that we use with the town. There were two conflicting, I think there's only like 3 available accounts or 4, I'm not sure. And so we're using the Board of Health Zoom account tonight. And so I will be sure to, I sent an email to Joanne Duncan asking Jen that you be added to the November and December meeting schedule, and also the distribution list for the Disability Commission. And I also emailed, and I think I CC'd you, Jen, for the town clerk's office to add you to the roster on our webpage. Right now, it only has six folks, so want to make sure that your membership is accurate in all locations. So, all right. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, Daryl, motion to adjourn, second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Daryl, seconded by Catherine to adjourn. By roll call, all those in favor, Daryl,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
okay,
Sorry.
Catherine,
Aye.
Jen,
I.
Roger, I declare at 8:28 PM, I declare the motion carried, declare the motion to adjourn carried. See you next month.